Wine is a love affair that's been going on between man and nature since long before the dawn of recorded history. For centuries, wine has been the drink of the common man and the uncommon man. Wine is a party. It's celebration and friendship and fun. In food, or with food, or all by itself. Wine has a special magic for all to enjoy. Wine is to enjoy. And yet, I'm sorry to say, some people look upon wine as a problem. Which wine should I buy? Which wine should I serve with which food? Should the wine be chilled? What sort of glass do I use? You know, it's a shame so many people are confused by all these rules. There have been literally thousands of books written about wine. I certainly haven't read them all. All I know is that I like good wine. And you don't have to be a wine expert to enjoy good wine, any more than you'd have to be an automotive engineer to enjoy a new car, or a professional musician to enjoy good music. Of course, if you know something about the wine and the winemaker, it'll help you better to enjoy the fruits of his efforts. Basically, wine is very simple. It boils down to the fact that there are four principal classifications of wine. There are appetizer wine, dinner wine, dessert wine, and champagne. Within any of the classifications, names are often generic in origin. That is, wines named after the region or district in which they're produced, such as Burgundy wine from the Burgundy district of France, or Rhine wine from the Rhine district of Germany. Sometimes wines are named after the variety of grape from which they're made. These are varietal wines. Today, some wine labels include a varietal name and a generic name to identify the high quality of the wine and the unique grapes from which it is made. For example, this label tells you that the wine is of a Burgundy type and is made from the magnificent Baco Noir grape grown in the Finger Lakes district of New York State. To find out more about a wine, turn the bottle around. Many wineries describe the wine, its taste, and occasionally a little of its history on the back label. Besides being informative, some are quite a lot of fun to read. So when you go to buy a wine, check the labels. And I might add one more point. A winery that's proud of the fact that it's in one of the world's great wine districts usually says so on its labels. Wine grapes flourish in a particular type of environment, and that's why back in 1860, the Pleasant Valley Wine Company nestled itself into the hillside at the southern tip of Keuka Lake in New York State and became the first bonded winery in the U.S. The soil and climate of this pleasant little valley were chosen because they were found to be almost identical with the Champagne district in France. And in 1867, just 7 years after its founding, the champagne from this little American winery was pronounced the finest in a worldwide competition in Paris. One of the famous connoisseurs of that time called it the great champagne of the Western world, hence the trademark Great Western. But champagne was just the beginning of a whole new breed of wines from America and the Finger Lakes district. All vintners agree on one thing, that a wine can be no better than the grapes from which it is made. And today, in the vineyards of the Pleasant Valley Wine Company, unique Native American grapes such as the Catawba, Delaware, Ives, Duchess, Diamond, and Isabella are used to create outstanding American wines. And French-American grape varieties such as the Aurora, Baco Noir, Chalois have made great Western wines from the Finger Lakes district famous the world over. All wine starts here at the vine with nature and her gift of the grape. And because grapes provide their own natural coating of yeast and contain their own sugar, a fresh grape, when crushed, will make its own alcohol, will create wine. And in following the magic of nature, the more natural the winemaking process, the better the wine. In the autumn, freshly picked grapes are inspected and quickly fed into the stemmer crusher. Depending on the type of wine to be made, the grapes are then sent on two somewhat different routes. If the grapes are to become a red or pink wine, they are sent to redwood vats to be fermented on their skins. The resulting must, as it's called, is then put into a gently rotating press, which extracts the pure, naturally colored juice from the pulp, without crushing a single seed. This old-world method of fermenting on the skins and slow, gentle pressing takes great skill and patience, but the pure color of a really fine red or pink wine can be produced in no other way. This young red wine will move into large storage vats and on into small oak casks to slowly age for a long time. It is in the aging that wine develops smoothness, mellowness, and character. Small white oak cooperage is very important in the making of red wine. Though few American wineries use small cooperage today, small oak casks breathe and greatly aid in the all-important aging process of red wines. There are thousands of small 50-gallon oak casks at Great Western for aging red wine alone. Time makes the difference in red wines, but the mellowness, smoothness, and full-bodied flavor that result are worth the long wait. Now, in the making of white wines, fermentation on the skins is not required. In fact, it is not desired. In order to obtain a light, bright white wine, the must from the stemmer crusher is immediately stacked into what the winemaker calls a cheese. The cheese is built up layer upon layer. A huge hydraulic press comes down, and the result is pure, beautiful grape juice. Then this juice is sent to the fermentation vats, and when the seething and bubbling of fermentation is over, the juice has become wine. Nature's sugar has disappeared, and in its place is nature's own alcohol. Now the young white wine is moved into storage vats and on into large cooperage, larger than for the red wines, because white wines do not need and should not have the aging required for a good red wine. At Great Western, the magnificent wooden cooperage, built by the winery's own coopers, ranges in capacity from 50 gallons to 95,000 gallons. If the wine is to become a dry white vermouth or sweet vermouth, it is blended with many exotic herbs. If the wine is to become a dessert wine, such as sherry or port, grape brandy is added, and the wine is put away to age and blend in the solera. A solera is the old-world aging and blending system that is the traditional method of the great sherries and ports of Spain and Portugal. First, the new wine is put into a series of small oak casks for 1 year. Then the wine is moved into larger casks that have been left at least half full of wine from the year before. This blend ages for another full year. Then in the 3rd year, half of this wine is put into still larger casks, again half filled with older wine, to age for another year, and so on to the final cask. Because only half the wine is moved each year through the series of casks, the Solera process as a whole goes on forever. The blend in each cask becomes older and older, and smoother and smoother. There are only a few wineries in the United States with the patience and the skill to use this method. So when you look at a label, look for the word Solera. Legally, it can appear only on the world's great sherry and port wines, wines that use the true Solera aging and blending method. Now let's look at the most romantic of all the world's wine, champagne. Millions of bottles of champagne that are now aging in the deep, cool underground vaults of Great Western. If the wine in the aging vats is to become champagne,